You ever make a ton of money for doing literally nothing? No, me neither, and I do nothing all day. But the world of Hollywood is very different from the world you and I live in, and it is not uncommon for actors to make millions of dollars for only working for a few hours, or sometimes for not even working at all. In this video, we will take a look at actors who were given massive salaries for tiny little itty-bitty cameos, including MCU stars getting paid six figures for just a few minutes, actors making tons of cash for a couple of lines, and others getting paid for not even being there. Let's dive in.
I don't need to go to
Mr. Stark is no longer connected.
Looking back at Spider-Man Homecoming, you will probably remember Tony Stark being a rather prominent character in the movie, but in actuality, Robert Downey Jr. is only on screen for 8 minutes, which really says a lot about how good RDJ is as Iron Man. But for such a short appearance, you might be thinking his salary wasn't that large, right? Well, maybe not, seeing as we are mentioning it on this list, but that's because RDJ earned $10 million for those 8 minutes, which, even for a billion-dollar company like Disney, must have hurt the wallet. Still though, for that awkward hug scene alone, it was worth every penny. Makes you wonder, though, if there was an ulterior motive behind killing off Iron Man. Speaking of expensive Marvel cameos, we move on to the big man himself, Samuel L. Jackson, aka Nick Fury.
You need to keep both eyes open.
Even though he is one of the longest-serving Marvel stars, he doesn't have all that many minutes on screen, sometimes just appearing in a brief post-credit scene. But despite that, due to Jackson's negotiation skills and possible Jedi mind tricks, he managed to negotiate a sensational deal with Marvel that means he earns a minimum of $4 to $6 million every time he appears in the MCU, even if it is only for a matter of seconds. Safe to say he's got a pretty good agent. As we are talking about more expensive Marvel cameos, why stop now? Natalie Portman might be returning to the Marvel world in the upcoming Thor: Love and Thunder movie, but she hadn't been seen in the MCU since Thor: The Dark World back in 2013 and was seemingly done with the franchise.
As excuses go, it's not terrible.
That was until her brief appearance during the time heist in Avengers Endgame. Now, while her actual physical appearance was recycled footage left over from The Dark World, Portman did in fact come in for voice work, providing a couple of lines, and subsequently attended the movie's premiere. Despite the fact she only recorded a few lines for the movie, it is said she got paid quite a bit of money for her role. Now, while the actual figure is unclear, it has been rumored that the sum was rather large. But then again, Disney aren't exactly struggling for cash.
Good.
Now, this next one is admittedly a little bit of a cheat, as Groot is a prominent character in the MCU, but when you really take into account how much work Vin Diesel does for that voice, it's basically the same as a cameo. I mean, the guy does only have one line.
I'm Groot.
Okay, I guess technically two when he says we are Groot, but how much does he make for saying that one line exactly? Well, according to reports, just shy of $54.5 million. Now, I know he says the line with different intonations and in different languages, but still, $54.5 million for one line?
I'm Groot.
I need a new agent. Moving away from the MCU and to the broader Marvel properties, Hugh Jackman's cameo in X-Men First Class is undoubtedly priceless. Of course, in typical Hollywood fashion, his cameo, which involved saying 3 words, one of which we can't say on YouTube, cost a pretty penny, but not in the way you might expect. Instead of pocketing the money himself, Fox instead made a charitable donation to the actor's kids' schools. When commenting on the donation, Jackman said, "I think I may have been the only person to be rewarded charitably and get a tax donation for swearing on film." And I think he's probably right. In terms of Hollywood, this next cameo is fairly cheap, but it is still a crazy amount of money when you think about it. One of the greatest cameos in Deadpool 2 is Brad Pitt as Vanisher, with him only appearing on screen for a few seconds as he dies from electrocution. But while Pitt only appeared on screen for a few seconds, the scene took 30 minutes to shoot. While Pitt didn't ask for millions of dollars for those 30 minutes, he was actually paid the minimum rate, aka scale, which adds up to around $1,000. Which, I mean, isn't bad at all, is it?
Really?
When Star Wars The Force Awakens was announced, along with the news that the original trio were returning, excitement was obviously rather high. When the salaries were revealed ahead of time, Mark Hamill's pay of $1 million seemingly indicated that he was going to have a pretty prominent part to play. But, as anyone who has seen the movie will know, Mark Hamill only appears as the great Luke Skywalker for roughly 1 minute at the very end of the movie. Now, while his role in Last Jedi was significantly larger, $1 million for one scene is, it's pretty good. Hamill's Force Awakens co-star Harrison Ford profited even more from the movie, earning $34 million for reprising the role of Han, although admittedly his part was much larger and not exactly a cameo. But Ford also made a ton of money off of Catherine Bigelow's thriller K-19, The Widowmaker.
These 120 men are a crew now because they achieved something together that they did not think they could do.
Ford only spent 20 days working on the movie, but managed to rake in $25 million for his work, which is roughly $1.25 million per day. What is crazier still is that the movie's budget was $100 million, meaning a quarter of that was Ford's wages. I mean, I guess it's all fine if it made a ton of money at the box office though, right? Well, it would have, but the movie only went on to make $65.7 million. Yeah, I think it's clear to see who the winner was here. As Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson was the highest paid actor in 2020 and is seemingly constantly working, his time is definitely money. So even when he makes a cameo, you better believe he is going to get a rock-sized paycheck. During promotion for the action comedy movie The Other Guys, we were led to believe that The Rock and his on-screen partner Samuel L. Jackson would be major characters in the movie. But the trickery from the studio quickly became apparent when they only appeared in a handful of scenes. But as I said, The Rock's time is money, so despite only appearing in those scenes, the former wrestler earned a resounding $9 million.
Man who came from Austria with a dream.
Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Let me finish.
Chute has been deployed. Any use as an escape pod for re-entry is impossible.
Speaking of fake-outs, George Clooney was billed as one of the major characters in Alfonso Cuarón's space epic Gravity. But for anyone who has seen the movie will know, it is all about Sandra Bullock, with Clooney only appearing on screen for 18 minutes. But Clooney didn't walk away empty-handed, as along with his profit share, he made $20 million for those 18 minutes. Star-studded anthology movies such as Valentine's Day have somewhat become the norm, and seeing as Valentine's Day made $216.5 million at the box office, oh my goodness, it's clear to see why. But to get all of the superstars and to make a lot of money, you have to spend a lot of money. Take Julia Roberts' salary, for example. Despite only appearing in the movie for 6 minutes, the Pretty Woman star made $3 million, which, breaking it down, is $500,000 per minute. Funnily enough, Roberts said that appearing in the movie was a favor to the film's director, Gary Marshall. A $3 million favor. Yeah, remind me not to ask Julia Roberts for anything, okay?
Tactical game of reading your opponent and adjusting accordingly.
Johnny Depp will famously make $16 million for Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them 3, despite only shooting one scene and being replaced by Mads Mikkelsen, down to his player pay contract. But this isn't the only time the actor has made a lot of money for very little work. Now again, admittedly, the Mad Hatter in Alice in Wonderland is one of the bigger characters, but in terms of screen time, he isn't on all that long and has only 661 words in the movie. To put that in perspective, I have already spoken more than double that, although admittedly, I do talk a lot, and people complain about that, and I should probably stop. But I don't. But Depp's paycheck is slightly larger than mine, with the actor earning $45 million for the movie. Speaking of Depp, this next figure is much smaller than the $45 million, but still very large. For the movie Into the Woods, Disney brought in Depp to play the role of the Big Bad Wolf in a rather small role. Luckily for Disney, Depp didn't ask for another $45 million, but still got paid an easy $1 million for the role. The Mission Impossible series is obviously known for its star Tom Cruise, seeing as he earned $70 million for the first movie. But the series also has a number of ensemble stars that make up the franchise, one of whom is actor Ving Rhames, who, as the film series' popularity increased, so did the actor's paycheck, with him negotiating a minimum of $7.7 million to appear in a Mission Impossible movie. So despite having a minor cameo in Ghost Protocol, the actor earned $7.7 million for his appearance. Now, Marlon Brando has a number of quirky behind-the-scenes stories that could easily make up their own 15-minute video, but he is undoubtedly one of the greatest actors of all time. So it is no surprise he was brought in to play Jor-El in the 1978 Superman movie entitled Superman, the movie. But despite the actor only working for 12 days on the movie, appearing for roughly 12 minutes, he refused to learn his lines and demanded to read off cue cards which were placed off camera. But despite all these facts, the actor earned $19 million for his role, which, in today's economy, is more like $50 million. Who said you had to work hard to make money? Well, my dad did, and he was mostly right. While the first two Scary movies were pretty great, the quality declined as their run went on, but that didn't stop them from making a fifth movie, bringing back Charlie Sheen alongside Lindsay Lohan for 2 scenes. Despite only shooting 2 scenes though, Sheen made $250,000 for his performance. To his credit though, he gave $100,000 of that to his co-star Lohan, who was struggling to cover her unpaid taxes, as well as giving the other $150,000 to charity. Like a number of actors on this list, the late Sean Connery was undoubtedly a box office draw, and that can be seen with the commercial success of Kevin Costner's Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves, which made almost $400 million at the box office. Connery appears briefly in the movie for 2 scenes with a total of 4 lines, which altogether took 2 days to shoot. But Connery got paid rather nicely for those 2 days, earning a total of $250,000, which adds up to $62,500 per line. I hope he at least remembered them. The 2007 movie Beowulf was marketed for its, at the time, cutting-edge animation, as well as inclusion of a CGI Angelina Jolie. In hindsight, though, the animation is a little dated, and Jolie wasn't in the movie all that much. But as she was the face of the movie and her likeness was used, Jolie earned $8 million for her role, which is one of the biggest single paychecks ever for voice work. Like RDJ in Homecoming, Jennifer Aniston's involvement in the comedy movie Horrible Bosses feels pretty large, but looking back, she actually wasn't in the movie all that often, with her having roughly only 900 lines of dialogue throughout the film. But that didn't stop her from being one of the highest paid stars in the movie, earning $6.6 million for her part. But let's be honest, it's Jennifer Aniston. She can do what she wants. This next one is peculiar because it actually started out as a relatively small paycheck before ballooning into a 6-figure one. Jesse Eisenberg, as a favor for his friends, appeared for 5 minutes in the movie Camp Hell, with the actor getting paid $3,000 for his work. But the movie marketed Eisenberg's involvement in order to get people to watch the film, which led Eisenberg to sue them for $3 million in damages for using his likeness. In the words of Ron Burgundy,
"That escalated quickly."
Again, this next entry is technically an essential character, but still a crazy amount of money in relation to screen time. Like Sean Connery in Prince of Thieves, Alec Baldwin made $250,000 for his appearance in the classic film Glengarry Glen Ross, despite only appearing for a handful of minutes and working for less than 2 days. I guess in this case, it's very much quality over quantity, since his monologue is still one of the most famous aspects of the film.
Have you made your decision for Christ?
This next entry is pretty crazy because they reportedly got paid a huge fee for not actually doing a single day's work on the film. In Alien, Michael Biehn's Corporal Hicks was initially meant to be set up to become the next protagonist, but this was changed during production to keep Sigourney Weaver's Ripley as the lead. Hicks was subsequently killed off, meaning the actor did not return for Alien 3. But the actor heard that the studio was using his likeness for the movie and quickly filed a lawsuit against them, refusing them the rights to use his likeness without compensation. The figure has never been revealed, but Hollywood legend has it that Bienh was paid 6 figures despite not physically appearing in Aliens 3. Now, the role of Zeus is no minor part, no matter how much time they actually spend on screen. So, when casting the role, you need a great actor. Laurence Olivier is one such actor, and despite Zeus only appearing for a few scenes in the 1981 Clash of the Titans, Olivier was cast for the role. Of course, such a big actor demands a big salary, and despite only working a few days, Olivier earned $300,000 for the role, which is almost $1 million in today's economy. The next one is admittedly not a cameo, but still one of note. Due to a number of behind-the-scenes issues, the movie All the Money in the World required quite a few reshoots, which meant that the movie's star, Mark Wahlberg, had to be brought back for a few days of filming. But the actor's time is apparently worth a lot of money, with Wahlberg getting paid $1.5 million for the reshoots alone. This again isn't technically a cameo as he played a major part in the movie, but it's an interesting factoid. Instead of taking a flat rate for his role as Obi-Wan in A New Hope, Alec Guinness demanded 2.2% of the movie's profits, which at the time didn't seem to be that much. In the end though, it earned him $50 million. Moral of the story, Alec Guinness was one smooth operator. Before we leave, although all these stars got paid for at least having their likeness appear in the movie, Benicio del Toro was actually paid $5 million for not appearing in American Gangster. That's because the actor was initially attached to the film before it was canned. This movie was eventually made, of course, and although del Toro didn't appear in it due to a clause in his contract, he took an easy $5 million.